Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 says what? When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then he tells those that are in Judea to flee to the mountains. And so we don't know exactly from that passage what to do, except for the fact that Jesus brings it up. However, we can key that passage to many, many other places because it's a very familiar, it's one that is used by a lot of different writers on prophecies. A lot of the prophets wrote about it. And so we can key it to those. And so we can know about what will take place in the other places. So now the first place that it mentions it in Daniel is in Daniel chapter 9 verse 27. And we've read that many times. He will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. Now this is talking about the person who is being inspired by the prince who is to come. So is the person that we believe will become our, is made obvious in the 11th chapter as being the Antichrist. But in the middle of the week, he will put a stop to the sacrifice and grain offerings, and on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction. One that is decreed is poured out on the one who makes desolate. Every sentence in that, or every phrase, has a broad meaning and is discussed in quite a bit of detail in other places. And so we'll look at some of those, and we have been looking at some of those. When we get down to Daniel chapter 11, which is the one I believe, even though Jesus didn't say which of these, he just said spoken of by Daniel the prophet, let the reader understand. In Daniel 11:30, he's talking to us there about wars that are going on and how that this person who starts out to be for the covenant turns his back on it. So he starts out, and in reality, he starts out as one might call him the shepherd of Israel. In that sense that he is trying to make sure they have a place in Israel. So he confirms the covenant with the many for 1 week, and he becomes their shepherd. However, he becomes their foolish shepherd because his mind and heart begins to turn against Israel. And within 3.5 years, he not only has turned his mind completely against it and his heart completely against Israel, now he is enraged at the covenant and the people of the covenant. Now this is, you can see this in a lot of different places. This is one of the places that we see here, but we can see it in a lot of other places. I'm not going to try to bring up every place that talks about that. I will talk about some of those, but he becomes enraged with the Holy Covenant, and last week I mentioned this is spoken of here. It's also the almost exact same phrasing is used in Revelation as is used here, and including the word enraged, except there, instead of saying enraged at the covenant, it says enraged at the woman in Revelation chapter 13. So he talks about being enraged at the woman. Here it's enraged at the covenant. It's the same thing. It's enraged at the people who brought forth the Christ into the world, through whom Christ came. So he will take action, and he will come back. He'll show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. So now he's gone to the other side. And so for the next 1,260 days, 42 months, 3.5 years, so that's the same period of time. During that period of time, he now will join forces with those who are against the covenant, so that in the beast of Daniel chapter 7, the first is the lion with the eagle's wings. The second is the bear with the red bear, and then the third one is the leopard, and then the fourth one, which does not have a name, is the kingdom with 10 heads and 10 crowns that converge down to 7 heads after 3 of them are destroyed or taken out by the little horn. So now he's joined forces with that third one, the leopard. The leopard, I believe, represents ISIS. It's the rider on the black horse, not ISIS, but the radical Islamists. So radical Islamists in Sharia law is probably represented by that. And so why the color black? Color white because it's mainly Anglo, English and the United States probably. The color red for the second horse and is the symbol of the bear because the bear is the communist nation. They also, red is their color. They will take peace from the earth. That's where the World War comes from. The color black is the color of the Islamic flag. It was Muhammad's color. Muhammad's color was black. His flags were black. And so now the thing about the Islamists is that they are anti-covenant. They not only forsake the covenant, they've been against the covenant all the way through. The covenant God made with Abraham was not passed to the oldest son of Abraham, which would have been Ishmael, and had it been, it would have been the Arabs and those that were in the Arabian Peninsula, but it wasn't passed to him. Who was it passed to? The second son, and the second son was Isaac, and Isaac passed it to Jacob, who later became Israel. And so there was a conflict in regard to the covenant from that moment on, that Abraham, told by God to do so, rejected, you could say, Ishmael in favor of Isaac. Isaac was the son of the promise. He's the son of the covenant. And so there has been now, did Abraham make promises and a covenant and all for Ishmael? In a sense he did. And he promised him, the 12 tribes and all of those things. So yes, he did. But it was not the covenant that God made with Abraham. The covenant God made with Abraham was told that God would bless Ishmael and all of that. But he was told, but the covenant will be with your son Isaac. And then from Isaac, Isaac was told that it would be to Jacob, and of course Jacob became the children of Israel. So he will show regard. Notice those words. He will show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. In other words, he had confirmed the covenant, but now he has forsaken the Holy Covenant. Now, if we read over in Zechariah chapter 11, one of the things that we'll find, and we'll look at that in just a few minutes, but he's called a foolish shepherd. And part of the reason is because he forsakes the flock. And so he became the shepherd of Israel when he confirmed the covenant as the leader of the free world, or in a way the leader of the world. He confirms the covenant, but then he forsakes the covenant. He is enraged at the Holy Covenant. He shows regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. And so when he does that, he will be punished for that, as we will see. When that happens now, forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, do away with the sacrifice, and they will set up the abomination of desolation. This is the words that Jesus uses. When you see, therefore, the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, this is where you see it. So in this warfare, you see the changing of this man, and you'll be watching this happening. I think in America, it may be that there'll be no electricity, no television. Maybe there will still be by then. If there is, I think that you'll be watching it on CNN, on Fox News, or wherever. You'll see the progression going as this one is turning against, because I'm not exactly sure when this event happens of the destruction of Mystery Babylon. So that's the reason I'm saying I can't tell exactly. I probably, after I think about it some more, will probably do a lesson on that.
Where in the 7 years do you think that falls?
It falls in the middle, yes. And so why do I think that? So look back on Daniel 9:27. Part of that I get from here.
That's right.
In the middle of the week.
In the middle.
Okay,
yes.
That's part of it. Then the next part will be, I will get, and I'm going to go back up to that in just a little bit. I get it from chapter 12, verse 14 of Revelation. This times and half a time.
Yes.
The woman will fly into the wilderness for that. If she flies into the wilderness at that point, then It's for time, times and a half a time, which means a year, 2 years and a half a year, or 3.5
So
years.
it could be at this point where he is now fully possessed. I mean, Satan
Yes.
is in him
Okay,
fully.
yes. Satan actually, as we'll see, we're going to get farther down in the lesson, and I don't know if we'll get there tonight, but after he's slain and his fatal wound in his head, then it's very obvious that he is totally possessed
Yes.
from that moment on. So but even before that, he has been making a progression. And we watched that through Daniel chapter 11. We didn't go through that in this study, but in Daniel chapter 11, we see the progression. He's making treaties, breaking treaties, lifting up people and all of that. As the prince of the covenant the prince that is anti-covenant. What was the prince to come who leads him to make the covenant now breaks it. Now what does God do when a person breaks covenant? I mean, they get punished for that. There's a punishment for breaking covenant. In other words, had he just not been in favor of the covenant to start with, he'd have been better off. But it's a terrible thing to make a covenant, especially to confirm the covenant that you know God has made, and then to become enraged at that covenant. Go through all that process and forsake the covenant and join with those who forsake the covenant, which is what he will do. I will show you as time goes on, and we will look at. I'll show you, but there's it's in the middle of the week, the 3.5 year time, times and a half a time, and another place he actually says 3.5 years, and another place he says 42 months. 42 months is 42 30-day months, which is 1,260 days, and that's where that comes out. And then when we get into Daniel chapter 12, he talks about the 1290 days and the 1335 days, which the 1290 days would be the 1260 plus one extra month. Could be because it's to make up for the difference in the long months. Okay, so anyway, they will set up the abomination of desolation. The next thing that's each of these phrases that are here are given in very concise little bits, but there are several verses, if not chapters, that deal with each one of these, in other words. So we could deal with these, and on each one of these, we could take the abomination of desolation, but this, by smooth words, he will turn to godlessness, those who act wickedly toward the covenant.